continues with tape 8.
But you also can't forget this is a superposition of many different factors.
That's right. This is a picture of a resonance pattern, an interference pattern of many times and places. Now, up here at the top of this thing, at the very top, it's 1455. What happened in 1455? Does anyone know? What? Columbus was born? Thanks for playing. In 1455, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turk, making European access to the Far East impossible. Therefore, the age of exploration begins, and you get Vasco da Gama and all those people. This was a tremendously shattering event for European civilization to lose Constantinople to the Ottoman Turk. Now let's go over to, to this place. This is another very seminal event which, combined with this Constantinople loss, sets the stage for this descent into novelty. Even though it's way up here in habit, there's a little chip out, as there's a novel invention of some sort that happens in 1440, I'm sorry. The invention is the invention of printing in Mainz in 1440. That did it, friends, as far as most people are concerned. Enlarge it one set now? Good idea. Yeah, let's do one zoom. I think I have to move it over clear all the way before we do that zoom, or there'll be some kind of a screw-up.
Yeah, you'll focus on that one.
Right. Let me...
This is absolutely incredible.
Well, I'm glad you like it, because it's my best trick.
Not bad.
Now, if you only had one for Macintosh, you really...
I do.
Oh, you do?
It's just we haven't written the manual yet.
Oh. How much are these going to be? You know?
Oh, hard to say.
Oh, you're bad.
Okay, now it's pointing at today. Now let's do our zoom. Approach factor 2. Strange that it didn't ask for the seek minimum, isn't it? Okay. Now we're seeing the same thing again. We're just seeing it in higher detail. But what I'll fudge by telling you that up here, 1455, down here, 1492. Along this screaming descent into novelty are all the painters of the Quattrocento. This is the Italian Renaissance, this descent into novelty. And this is the era of exploration. 1492. Good, huh? Good. The absolute thing is in 1485. And all the painters of the Italian Renaissance are along this thing. Now, notice that in 1492, there isn't an instant rebound. There's 1492. But instead, because the lost half of the planet has been discovered, this sets off the age of discovery. And habit is unable to reassert itself because too much peculiar data is flowing in. Too many new lands, peoples, materials, philosophies, alphabets, languages, sexual styles, cuisines, and it's like they're overwhelmed. However, after a while, they get their act together and manage to turn it into hell itself. Right there, right?
Cigarettes.
What that is, what ends the era of discovery and optimism and psychedelic exotica is the 30 Years' War. The 30 Years' War begins in 1619. It ends in 1648. It begins with Europe medieval. It ends with Europe modern. Parliaments have replaced popes and kings. The whole name of the game has been changed. Now, the 30 Years' War lasts, as I said, until 1648. 1648. At the bottom of this cut in here, which is in a situation of rising habit, there nevertheless is a strong tendency toward novelty, reaching a culmination in 1677. Newton publishes the Principia. The celestial mechanics are put on a firm basis. The calculus has been invented. The world of modern science is now completely in place. Then, and what, aside from the 30 Years' War, what Europe is exporting to the rest of the world on this hellish upswing is slavery, the patron system, forced labor, a brutal return to habitual methods of the past. You may not know that slavery died with the fall of the Roman Empire. If you owned a slave during the medieval period, you owned one slave. It was a house slave, and it proved, your ownership of this person proved that you were a person of immense wealth. It would be like owning a beach bonanza today. It's beyond owning a Rolls Royce. But the need for a drug, strangely enough, the drug being sugar, reversed this, and in the 1440s they began buying Africans and taking them to the Canary Islands to work sugar. So, the moral power of Western civilization could not stand in the way of the reestablishment of slavery and the sugar trade. Now, up here at the top of this thing, there is there's a twist, a turn right there. In 1739, this is the European Enlightenment. The European Enlightenment was the great intellectual step that set the stage for secular civilization. People like Voltaire. And out of that came two revolutions. Well, the Inquisition would have been, I presume, a fairly unnovel thing, since what it was a power group torturing the helpless, which there's nothing new in that, for heaven's sake.
It went on for a long time, too.
It went on for a long time, but actually it was a Spanish phenomenon. It was confined geographically to a very small number of places. Right there, August 1st, 1776, the American Revolution takes place as a consequence of this steep descent into novelty at the beginning of the European Enlightenment. Well, as you know, the American Revolution is generally thought to have had a happy conclusion. The French Revolution, not so happy. And if you explode that area and look, you can see that they're happening on different slopes of this thing. Then the restoration of Louis Napoleon in 1803 is there. This bump is the American Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War, which were the first modern wars and completely distorted the demographics of the United States and Europe. And now I want to...
What year was that?
The Franco-Prussian War began in 1848, I think, and the Civil War was 1865. I want to go over here to... I think you're right. I didn't feel right about saying that, and that would... 1848 was the year of revolution, but the Franco-Prussian War was at the same time as the American Civil War. You're right. Okay, there's today's date. Now let's do the approach. Approach factor. 2. Okay, that's 357 years on the screen. You see the American and French revolutions, the Franco-Prussian War, the American Civil War, the 20th century. Now let's look at the 20th century. And this is, remember how I said that the Great Pyramids were at the bottom of this trough at a higher level? And now we're seeing the same pattern again. What we get at the bottom of this trough here is the Third Reich. And to show you how the resonances work, think about the Third Reich in relationship to ancient Egypt. First of all, probably the word Führer can be traced to the word Pharaoh. This is the same concept of a master leader. In addition, the Third Reich and ancient Egypt shared an obsession with large-scale, tasteless architecture. In addition, both civilizations had a real tendency to lean on the Jews. So you see, you get this strange kind of microscope on a history. I mean, most people, I think, would not associate ancient Egypt to the Third Reich. And yet when you begin listing the similarities, you see, in a way, one is a reflection of the other. Okay, within the 20th century, this is somewhere like 1903. The Einstein was in 1905. The general theory, I think. Which came first, the general or the special? Special came first in 1905, and the general came slightly later. Down here in the bottom of this trough, let me show you. Right there, Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. And then all of World War II is fought in the bottom of that trench. Here's 39. Here's August 39. That's June. That's September. So that's when it begins. And see how, even though it's a novel situation, because it's a war, it's a recursion to habit. So at the bottom of a trough of novelty, you get a little upward pimple of recursion to habit. Then let's look at, there it is. That's Hiroshima right there, and Nagasaki right there. The war ends, and novelty is left behind. And remember that the psychology of the post-war mind was everybody wanted things to just get back to normal. I mean, certainly the Europeans wanted things to get back to normal. Their whole scene had been bombed into the Stone Age. And in this country, people just wanted to get their place in the suburbs and marry the girl next door and have a slew of kids and buy a Chevrolet and forget about, 1,000-year millennial plans and all the rest of it. And so this is the post-war, Cold War era. And it lasts, let's look. Oh, there's 1952. Here's the launching of Sputnik is there.
It was 59.
No, October 1st, 1957. A day graven on my mind till they lower my box. The first American satellite was launched right around there, Explorer 1. Give me the date.
Right about that bottom peak.
Okay, there's the assassination of John Kennedy, as close as I can get it at this resolution. If I go back one, I'm before it. So you see it's right at the bottom of that steep stab that takes place against this other thing. What turned it around? You mean what's the turning point? I thought you'd never ask.
Yeah. And when is it? When was it?
Oh, I'm about to get it for you. There it is, August 1967. It's the summer of love. Not only does this thing illuminate history, it also, fulfills my deepest inner delusion. So, and remember I said when we were looking at History's Fractal Mountain that this was Homer up here? So then you can see that the freak thing, the hippies were like the pre-Hellenic Greeks. I mean, all those, all that bralessness and loose-fitting clothes and tambourines and ecstatic bacchanalian with a philosophical undertone. I mean, it was a Greek mentality that broke out in 1967. Well, then here's the long descent into, the dreary present moment. And what can I show you here? Richard Nixon getting the axe. Yeah. Now we're into the Reagan era down here.
During the period of all the Apollo.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to cut it. I'm just trying to get back to today. There it is. Okay. Cut it. Zoom, yes. Approach factor 2. Enter.
And what's the stand going to be?
Well, it's going to be...
For each side.
There it is. That's the hippie thing, and then the descent. Now that's the 70s and the 80s. That's the last 11 years. I want to stop it here. Now, see how tight it has to be to work. Remember that we've been looking at this thing we've descended from 6 billion years to 11 years. We have predicted asteroid impacts, glaciations, speciations, the rise and fall of empires. Now we're down to the short and curly, I would think. Let's take a look here at what we've got. Who I suppose, now we're all experts on this phase of things because we've all just lived through, I don't see anyone here under 11. So we've just lived through all of this. So let's take a look at what it is. Now let's see, when was George Bush elected president? 88. So it would have been November 88. That's October. That's November. Now, what is the resonance to that moment? I don't think of it so much as Bush being elected as Reagan leaving office. The resonance here is the fall of Rome. Rome falls right there. Well, then see, we have a series of high and low points which we should be able to correlate to recent catastrophic or world-changing events. So let's play the game. What's happening down here for the 30 days preceding that day is 1 million people are camping out in Tiananmen Square. At the very bottom of the trough is the night that they had the most people in the square. And then it turns upward, as you can see, because the constipated fascist oligarchs in charge of that society were preparing to do murder. And there's nothing novel or new about murder. It's the oldest game in the book. So that went on there. Then remember the Romanian... let's go over here. The next steep descent into novelty is right there. Right? That's too far. No, that's right. Okay, right there. Who knows what happened very close to 11/11/89? The Berlin Wall fell down. Germany is unified right there. So Tiananmen, Germany, then a bummer of some sort. And what is that bummer? It's the Romanian Revolution, which, as you'll recall, was handled in the Messier style, where you put people up against walls and machine gun them and so forth and so on.
One of convergence, that was August 87.
August 87?
sort of the building of the reaction in the Soviet Union to what Gorbachev was doing as well.
Yeah.
Along that line. Well, then let's go over to here.
I want to see that harmonic convergence.
Oh, you want to see the harmonic convergence? Give me the date.
887.
887. In judging this, you have to ask yourself, was the harmonic...
It's actually 88. That's the first anniversary. That's the Iran-Iraq war ending right there.
Wait, we'll go back to 87.
But don't you want to go back to 87?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting thing with harmonic convergence is on the anniversary every year something interesting happens. In the 6 month anniversary.
Well, maybe it's not... Oh, okay. August what?
17th, 19th.
There is as close as we can get. What it shows that is that a long descent into novelty that had previously been impeded, but there isn't anything particularly special about that date, but it does fall in the domain of going over this hump. Over here, you'll recall the Gulf War and all that. Here's how that looks. Okay, now, look here. August 3rd, 1990. There's where Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. It's also where Muhammad is born, one level up. I can get higher and lower resonances simply by touching I here. We haven't done that, but it's possible. Now, remember how after he invaded, then there was a lot of breast beating and armies being moved into position and so forth. That goes on until there. Now, there is where the 30-day ultimatum from the Security Council is issued. The war begins, the air war, on the 17th of January, right there. And the land war...
Do you have the hour on it?
Well, you can see that there's a steep descent into novelty, which then is slightly moderated, and at the kink is where the war begins. Now, the next steep descent into novelty...
So lining people up and machine gunning them happens during periods returning to
habit. That's the usual habit.
Increase the complexity.
And I read war happens during novelty.
Well, war is a kind of ambiguous thing. War is a habitual activity, but it does cause novelty, especially technological novelty. So, that's why it's nice that you can blow up these waves and see the variations within the theme. Now, this point...
Coup in the Soviet Union.
That's it. There it is, the coup in the Soviet Union, right at the bottom of this one. And now the next one is really intriguing to me, and I'll show you why. There it is. It's February 21st of this year, and it's the lowest point of novelty for this year. Now, I was really puzzled by this because I watched very carefully that week, and there didn't seem to be anything very novel going on. My book did come out, you're right, but I was modest enough not to place that in a context of world history.
It's more important than the drug summit that was there.
Well, you know what happened? And this leads us to the slippery edge of prophecy. There was an event which happened, not on the 21st of February, but on the 20th, which may be trivial and forgettable and absolutely not worth talking about, or may be one of the most important events in the history of the 20th century. Do you know what it was?
Terence McKenna invents 10 ways zero.
No. Ross Perot goes on Larry King and offers a suggestion about his availability for the presidency. Now, if the guy fades and becomes a nothing burger, it doesn't count. But he does have the wave blowing at his back. that's for sure. So that's basically it. If you want to see, let's see.
No. Let's come to today.
No, well, let's look at the future. Let me get the schmiggy somewhere roughly into the middle, and then we'll do it.
If you really want to sell software, don't show people the future.
Oh, no, because we can play with it specifically.
Okay, now let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Specify target date. C. Target date month. Let's do today. Today is the 5th month. The 31st day of 1992. We don't want to add days. Okay, we want to move that over to 50%.
The target date is the date at which the cursor pops up.
Yes, that's where the cursor pops up. Now let's choose the time span, E. Let's do 10 years. Plus months, 0. Plus days, 0. Now let's graph the wave. F. So it's pointing at today. 10 years. The last 5, the next 5. And what it shows is that we are actually, as if you didn't know, exploring a very deep trough of novelty. It will last until August of next year. And then there will be some kind of return to habit with a vengeance. Now, the November election is... Now, wait a minute. There's something wrong here. Let me see. No, I want to point it at today.
So go to 31st.
You can see what they are right there, right?
Yeah.
Go back.
Okay, that's as close to today as we can get.
We're getting ready to go down into creative.
Yeah, we're definitely getting ready to go down into novelty.
Now, how long is that space of that next little novelty thing?
You mean clear to here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's going to last until August 93. The thing to keep your eye on is this, which is such a spectacular drop. I mean, look how much weirdness we've been through, but it's taken us this much time to do it. This sucker is going to do it in a 3-month period in early 96.
You know, this is what we're doing FFTs could really be of value, because do you know what FFTs actually do?
I haven't the faintest.
They break down this waveform into a very large to infinite series of sine and cosine waves at varying amplitudes and phases. So if you could correlate a certain frequency of sine wave and phase shift with a phenomenon, say medical phenomena or political phenomena, you could really zero in on the nature of the changes that are likely to take place.
Well, I hope you'll do this. I think it should be done. Here, I'll show you a function you haven't seen. Instead of zooming in, we'll zoom out.
Oh, so you're going to go back to its last octave resonance?
Well, no. I'll just, instead of 10 years on the screen, we'll see 20.
Oh, I see.
Now, it's still pointing... well, no, wait a minute. Okay, there you see it.
Yeah, we're at this little peak.
Yeah, right. And there's the whole thing. So that's the idea. Now, the notion is that, remember how I kept talking about how a cone contains all possible ellipses and you section it? What the psychedelic experience is a sectioning of eternity. And you can build up a picture of the cone by sectioning eternity sufficiently that you get a map like this. I mean, I'm convinced by this that time is fractal, that instead of treating time as a zero quantity, as the Newtonian equations do, or as a very gentle curvature, as the Einstein equations do, that we have to sub in this fractal dimension, and that this will make possible a science as more powerful relatively to present science as present science is through the power of the calculus to Greek science. Time, about which we previously knew next to nothing except that it seemed to keep happening, can actually be described in the same way that energy and other factors in the universe can be described. Now, the last thought I want to leave you with is I don't think anybody could make this up. Certainly not me, a person with no training in mathematics, no interest in this kind of thing. I was told this stuff. And, most, God forbid, channeling is of the horrible variety, which tells you to, eat brown rice and love your neighbor. You don't need channels to tell you that. You have channels in your own head which tell you that. This is a mathematical equation. I mean, it's embedded in a lot of rap, but the real channel is an equation for the description of time, which makes assertions, makes predictions, is willing to be held to mathematical analysis, all the things scientists are always screaming that occultists never will provide them with their theories, this provides. So I'm willing, since it's only one person, one person's life, I'm willing to preach this a little bit because I'm not, maybe I can't believe, see, the choice here is pretty stark. Either I'm nuts or I'm Newton. There's no in between. Because there is no in between. Yeah, it's definitely. If it's right, I'm the greatest intellectual synthesizer in the history of man. If I'm wrong, it's just horseshit. So then the question is, which is it?
Let's look at that. Now, what is the corollary? Say you are the channel for the next step of our understanding of this reality in that sense. What is your resonant corollary from this time?
You mean, who am I the resonance of?
Yeah.
A question I've never asked.
Well, okay.
When did you first publish?
I figured this out. There were many. It took a long time, but from 1971 to 73 is when I figured it out.
Okay, so what was happening at that time back on the...
Here, not here.
Let's see. Let's go back. Let's go there and see.
And then in 1973,
Terence, I really
you had
think
your...
this needs to go into Einstein's equations. And the reason I said is because basically that's a description of the fabric of space-time. And if doing that shows things like supernova and whatnot that we can document,
then you would have it.
Absolutely.
Then you would have it.
So you had...
Okay, let's see.
Okay, so
You had finished developing this before your life-changing experience in 1970?
No, the life-changing experience was in 1971. Well, let's point it at this little dip here, giving me the benefit of the doubt, and say that it was January, February, March, April 26, 73. I'm sure that had you visited me in April 26, 73, you would have found me hunched over graph paper and working furiously. Now let's see what the resonance of that is. I is the resonance call. It asks higher or lower. We answer higher. That means earlier. Higher. Major or trigrammatic resonance. Forget that. Major is the answer. Which point? First, second, third, 99th? I have no idea what that means. Let's answer first. 526 BC. Oh, it's the Greek Renaissance. It's Plato, Pythagoras, Ezekiel, Confucius, Lao Tzu. Hey, I think it's time to knock off. You should quit when you're ahead, you know? Yes.
Cosmo methods, scientific discoveries. Nature provides us with redundancy. I'm thinking of calculus. I'm thinking of atomic bombs. They're usually developed in parallel, several sites on Earth. Just an observation. There's no parallelism here.
Well, in a sense, wait a minute. In a sense, there is. This is a fractal. It was invented or channeled by me before fractals became the absolute obsession of frontier mathematics. Now everybody wants to talk about fractals, and everybody says, population growth, river mouths, everything can be modeled by fractals, but nobody has said time can be modeled by a fractal. So I think probably the rise of fractal mathematics is indicative of this. The other thing is, this could never have been brought to the public without small personal computers. I developed this finished it in 75, and in 77 they began selling small computers. So it's a weirdness. It's a hallucination. That's what it is. My dream has always been to bring something here from there. And apparently the only things which travel well from there to here are ideas. And I'm not an artist, so I couldn't paint. So this is a psychedelic idea. I think there are millions of these kinds of ideas swimming in the psychedelic ocean. Yeah.
The second thing that strikes me about this is what good does it do us? And if it's true, I don't want to know it. I would like to hide from this if you're anywhere near correct.
Well, that's because what we really haven't talked about the nature of the concrescence. What is this? All argues for an impossible conclusion, that the world is going to disappear up its own wazoo at dawn, December 22nd, 2012.
What is your vision of the final, the end of time, and the meeting of the transcendental object?
Can we see it on the screen?
What?
The 2012?
Oh, you want to see the last day?
Right there.
Unless we
Well, here, let me...
Now you're experiencing the accusation in the message.
Yeah, I'll show you the final thing. We're running over here, but anybody who wants to leave has my blessing and my sympathy.
Well, we let you leave. This is
Okay, let's change the date of interest. Where is the date of interest? Well, they don't get date specific. Why don't I see? Oh, there it is. C. Target date. Oh, let's look at January 1st, 2010. On a time span. Oh, wait a minute. Do you wish to add a number of days? No.
We're rather fortuitous that we have 2012, but if we didn't have that calendar, there would be no place to index it.
That's right. That's right. Time span. Specify time span. E. Years. 2010. 12 years. Plus months. Zip. Plus days. Zip. F. Okay, the pointer will be pointing at Jan 1, 2010, but you see, there it is. It runs down. He don't go no more. That's the end. Now, I have created one way out that preserves the theory and a rational universe. And it is simply this, that what happens on December 22nd, 2012 is that time travel is invented. And because it is invented, it is no longer possible to portray historical data on a linear graph. So that's all. It's just it was a thing about technology, and eventually a technology was created which made the three-dimensional space-time matrix itself obsolete.
Well, it's just a dimensional octave jump.
Yes, dimensional octave jump. The transcendental object is the despair of description. It cannot be known. It can only be approximated. It's the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It's the flying saucer. It's the Philosopher's Stone. It's tantric union. It's good LSD. It's all of these things and more. It transcends language and understanding. But the closer we get to it, the more it will be revealed. And the reason the 20th century is so peculiar is because we're so close to the 0 point. We're so close to the transcendental object that, take a hit, there it is. Close your eyes and daydream, there it is. Have an orgasm, there it is. It's trying to break through. It's almost upon us. We've been sailing toward this thing for 72 billion years, and we are now 22 years from impact. The walls are so steep, the acceleration is so great. We are there for all practical purposes. And then what spiritual life and headdom and all that means is realize that we are there, so that anxiety drains from your life, body, and worldview, and then you just ride the wave. And when people talk of catastrophe, revelation, salvation, and destruction, you just smile a small smile, knowing that it will be all that and more and more and more. It's something, I think it's to reassure us. You see, I think the world is going to get hip to the fact that we are actually caught in a whirlpool in time that is sucking us into another dimension. Without something like time wave 0, a notion like that could get fairly alarming and spread a lot of panic. With time wave 0, you just say, look, we have a map of what's going on. We'll check off the milestones. As long as the wave keeps working, nobody should freak out. Just settle in, hang on, and we'll navigate through this. So it's a vital piece of knowledge necessary to face the eschaton without panic. Because these crazy religions want to tell you that you're going to be judged and damned and fired and roasted. No, that's not it. They got the story wrong. We're just being sucked into hyperspace. And hyperspace is the human imagination, the human heart, the human soul. It's the domain of our dreams. Our imagination is a flickering image of what it will be. But what it really will be is the despair of prose. What it will really be can only be approached in silent darkness on 5 grams. And then you can't tell anybody about it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This concludes In Search of the Original Tree of Knowledge, a weekend workshop with Terence McKenna. If you would like additional copies of this recording or a complete catalog of transformational audio tapes, please call Sounds True, 1-800-333-9185, or write Sounds True, 735 Walnut Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80302.